Yeah, sorry, guys. By a vote of 51 to 49, it's diarrhea forever over everyone gets a puppy. 51-49. No one was getting a puppy. Yeah, I shouldn't overstate the heat the liberals were gonna bring. Everyone gets diarrhea versus like everyone has a little tummy ache but makes it home in time. And they're fine. At least he's not pro-Russia. Well, it's difficult to be pro-Russia in Poland. That's a very, very, very difficult line to sell. I mean, he's still like right-wing. But yeah, no, it's pretty difficult to be that. Yeah, that's a non-starter. That's just not happening. Poland will now be governed by Nazis for the first time since 1945. Okay, let me just read up on how far right this guy is. 1 second. Just give me the news thing. DW, take it away.
We begin with breaking news from Poland, where a conservative challenger has won the presidential vote runoff after a knife-edge election. Official results released early on Monday showed Karol Nawrocki the winner with 50.9% of the vote. His rival, Warsaw's Liberal Mayor Rafał Trzaskowski, earned 49.1%.
Isn't he the guy that fire extinguished a menorah? No, that guy was pudgy with a beard. He's not the guy who extinguished the menorah. I think he was one of the candidates? But earlier exit polls were neck and neck, and both candidates declared victory at different points during the night. The post of president in Poland is largely ceremonial, but Nawrocki's victory now sets him up for... Okay, this guy doesn't look Polish. I think the problem here, like in an ethnic or phenotypical sense, I feel like this isn't a representation of the Polish phenotype. He is? Oh, I'm not saying he's not Polish. I'm just saying he doesn't look Polish. He looks a little Russian. A little. He looks German to me. He looks like a German guy. Haters will say that Germany and Poland are right next to each other, and we've long lived in a world with, you know, cross-border mingling. But what I'm saying is that you should be electing 6'4", balding, black-haired, hairy-knuckled Polacks, right? Like, I'm just saying, like, have some pride, you know? Like, look at France, okay? Their president is like a sexually overactive, handsome guy who was groomed by an older woman. Like, that's okay, France. You got it. I don't know.
A showdown with the country's pro-EU government.
When the polls closed, the election was too close to call, and it seemed as if there was still everything to play for both Liberal Warsaw Mayor Rafał Trzaskowski and Conservative historian Karol Nawrocki. The election evening turned into a rollercoaster ride for both candidates. A first exit poll showed Trzaskowski slightly ahead, reason enough for him to claim victory.
Ladies and gentlemen, we won. I think that this phrase will become part of the Polish language and Polish politics, on a razor's edge.
Nawrocki was undaunted and he refused to concede. 2 hours later, he got a boost when a second exit poll indicated that he was in the lead.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Let me get a read on this guy's political views. Nawrocki accused the ruling coalition of sexualizing children, demonstratively throwing a copy of the cover of Genderqueer, a memoir, into a paper shredder. Wow. Borrowing our talking points. Okay. Le wokizm. Referendum against Tusk. Participated in a 70v70 football hooligans fight. Okay. He called the fights noble battles. Allegations of him worked as a bodyguard for prostitutes in a 5-star Grand Hotel in Sopot in his youth, using snus while on air during a presidential debate, raising allegations of his heavy nicotine addiction. This is all light stuff. He got into fights, was a bodyguard for prostitutes, and does drugs? Okay, I don't know. Nawrocki is... Oh, sorry, Nawrocki. Is it... Where's the S? Because the DW commentator said Nawrocki, but I don't see an S anywhere in the name, because I would just read it as Nawrocki. The C has a TS? Nawrocki. Nawrocki. Really? In Nav? Okay, is it the W? That's V? So Nawrocki turns into Nawrocki? Interesting. Okay, I'll try to keep that in mind. Nawrocki. Okay, I'll try to keep that in mind. Close enough. I feel like that was pretty close. Close enough. I'll take it, I guess. Okay. Nawrocki is considered a nonpartisan, but of conservative outlook. He describes himself as a representative of the broadly defined patriotic camp and stresses that he has never belonged to a political party, blah, blah, blah. He considers himself a civic candidate that will end the Polish War. Okay. He declared that he is ready to support any Polish government that demands the exhumation of Polish victims in Volhynia. Were those the ones the Nazis executed? Okay, hold on. Wait, looks like we're going to be here for a second. Massacre of Poles in Volhynia and Eastern Galicia. Volhynia's Ukrainian fascists. It's a whole thing. Okay, I think I've heard of this. Peak of the massacres took place in 1943. Killings were exceptionally brutal. Okay, up to 100,000 Polish deaths. So is this like a dog whistle that I don't understand? Because if he's concerned about the Polish victims in Volhynia, wouldn't that mean that he's upset that they were killed by Nazis? It's an anti-Ukraine dog whistle. But at the time the Ukrainians were with the Soviets who were with the Nazis. It was committed by Banderites. They were killed by Ukrainian Nazis. If I recall correctly, this is basically how you follow the Russian dogma that the current Ukraine regime is Nazi. Okay. So the reason why this is a bit of a dog whistle is because rather than him being broadly concerned about Poles who were killed by Nazis, of which there were many, it's more like, let's focus on these Poles that were killed by a Ukrainian detachment of the SS, because then we make it like a national thing against Ukraine, rather than it being like broadly the Nazis invaded us, because like the Nazis killed millions of Polish people. Okay, interesting. Carried out in German-occupied Poland by the Ukrainian insurgent army. Okay, and the Ukrainian insurgent army was a Ukrainian nationalist. Oh yeah, this is the Banderite stuff, right? Ukrainian nationalist partisan formation founded by the Organization of Ukrainian Nationalists. They launched guerrilla warfare against Nazi Germany, the Soviet Union, and both the Polish underground state and Polish communists. Okay, so they fought everyone. They carried out massacres of Poles in Volhynia. Okay, we saw that, which are recognized by Poland as a genocide. Certainly seems like that. Okay, so it's they weren't explicitly working with the Nazis. These were largely Ukrainian nationalists, and this happened back, dude. This area was a shit show, man. Like it's not just the Nazis and the Soviets. Like that's what everyone talks about, but it's like there's a lot of stuff going on over here. They aligned with the Nazis in '44. Did they? So they aligned with the Nazis after they committed that massacre? They fought against the Germans in Volhynia and Polesia, fought against the Polish resistance, massacre, killed a bunch of civilians. In 1944, as the German army was retreating, the UPA started to attack its rear and seize the equipment. At the end of 1944, the UPA aligned itself with Nazi Germany? Wait, but that's the UPA. This is the UIA. Oh, no, okay, abbreviated UPA because languages aren't all the same. Okay. UPA alliance with Nazi Germany, ceasing its attack. Why would you align yourself with Nazi Germany after they start retreating? Because you don't want the Soviets to take your position? Ceasing its attacks on Wehrmacht position and attacking the Soviets in exchange for military aid. Okay. What did you think the end game was here, man? Okay, Jesus Christ. They led armed resistance against the Soviets till 1949. Jesus Christ. No wonder so many people don't like Ukraine. Jesus Christ. Opportunistic motherfucker. Okay. So he is saying that he is particularly concerned about the victims of massacres committed by Ukrainian nationalists who were fighting against everyone at some point or another. They fought against the Nazis, they fought against the Soviets, they slaughtered Poles. Okay, gotcha. Okay, now we know. Sorry, just a little. I'm sure this is of great importance in Polish political discourse, so I was curious. Ironically, the Nazis ended up putting Bandera in a death camp. He got a little silly with it. I'm not going to cry over him. Euronews describes the political alignment of Nawrocki's campaign as patriotic, pro-Christian, pro-NATO, and favorable to President Donald Trump. Okay, right, gotcha. Yes, I remember him meeting with Trump recently. FYI, Ukraine already agreed to those demands, and exhumations have been underway for 2 years so far. Okay. Social issues. A Roman Catholic with culturally conservative views accused the ruling coalition LGBT groups of sexualizing children. Right, we read that. Close ties with the Catholic Church in Poland, Polish government, broad criminalization of abortion, opposition to the legalization of same-sex marriage, civil unions are extending legal rights to people in same-sex relationships, citing Catholic sexual ethics. Geopolitically, he supports further strengthening Polish ties to the U.S. and NATO while opposing European integration. Okay. So it seems like he's a Catholic conservative. It doesn't seem like he's a Nazi. Because a Nazi would likely not be pro-NATO, would be my guess. Madero was a hero, did nothing wrong. Anyone who kills Russians has to be the good guys. Nice bait. Excellent bait, my lord. My comrade. Declared himself an opponent of the EU's migration policy and announced his intention to terminate the EU's migration pact. Okay. Defend traditional social values, stated his strong opposition to the removal of crosses from state buildings. He holds anti-communist views, criticized the Polish education system. He's responsible for removing several Red Army monuments in Poland, considered a criminal act by Russia, which put him on its national wanted list. Okay, that's probably fine. I can understand why you would want to take down Red Army monuments in Poland. I think that's like an understandable. I don't consider that an anti-communist thing at all. You know, I think that's pretty reasonable. I don't really give a shit if Russia considers that a criminal act. He's a strong supporter of armaments and social investment programs, pledged to abolish all overtime labor tax, focus on large economic investments. Wants big infrastructure projects, supports welfare programs, opposes adopting the euro as Poland's currency. Okay, yeah, okay. So, I mean, it honestly seems like cultural conservatism and nationalism are the two big through lines here. This doesn't seem like exceptionally bad. It's not good, but like in the scale of things, given the direction the country has taken, or I guess like the world has taken, I don't know. My standards for what is bad have shifted a little bit lately. So this could be a lot worse, I think. Poland will never adopt the euro, though they hate it. Well, like, unironically, with the reading that I've done on monetary policy, I'm starting to feel a little bit anti-euro myself, because it sucks if you are not Germany and you're reliant on the euro, but you don't really control the monetary policy of the euro. Like, the euro itself is good, but not having a centralized fiscal or monetary policy on the euro kind of means that if you're not Germany, like if you're a country like Greece, for example, you're kind of at the whims of like different countries have different economies, and they might be like in need of different monetary policy to kind of balance things out. And if everything's centralized under one currency, you kind of have like I don't know. Imagine if every country in both North and South America, if all of the Americas use the US dollar. The US dollar is pretty strong, so that's cool. But like, imagine being in like, I don't know, Ecuador or something, or Honduras or whatever, and like your economy is totaled, and like, what are you going to do? You can't print more. We print the currency, right? You can't adjust monetary policy because we do the monetary policy, right? You don't have much control over it, basically. It'd be great for us because then a bunch of countries would need our dollar. That would increase reliance on it, which would increase its like relative value. Okay, yeah. Basically what I'm saying is that you need to like you need to shit or get off the pot with the euro, I think. You need to like centralize monetary policy or allow for independent currencies, I think. Ecuador uses USD Lamau. Yeah, and how are they doing? Also, Poland having a cheaper currency than the euro massively helped it keep domestic prices down and boosted its exports. It's been great for them. Yeah, no, it makes sense. Yeah, because you have issues with like if you're using like a really strong currency, but the European Central Bank does exist. Yeah, but it doesn't like respect the needs of every country equally, of course, because it has to balance out so many things. It's complicated. It's complicated. Euro dollars for the win. Well, the euro dollar is just a US dollar that like Londoner wiped their dick on. It's complicated. Parentheses, I don't really understand it. He supports nuclear energy. He criticized the European Green Deal, stating that while he supports environmental protection, he opposes climate madness at the expense of Polish homes, workers, and entrepreneurs. Well, that's better than what we've got right now. Ensure food security, respects the sovereignty of the Polish countryside, and has described rural Poland as the mainstay of Polish culture, traditions, and social values. Ruralite seething. Opposes the federalization of the European Union. Nawrocki is opposed to Ukrainian membership in NATO or the EU until Ukraine accepts responsibility for the genocide of Poles in Volhynia. Haven't they? Does Ukraine deny that Ukrainian nationalists committed the genocide? Kinda, yeah, they do. That's odd. It's convenient to pretend they didn't. It's a complicated thing in Ukraine. Okay. I assume that they would have worked that out. To be fair, nobody except Poland considers it a genocide. I mean, didn't it say like 100,000 civilians? I mean, you could at least go by like massacre. I mean, it's seems pretty straightforward. UPA's actions resulted up to 100,000 Polish deaths. The killings were exceptionally brutal. Most of the victims were women and children. I don't know. It seems like a look at the classification. I'm not really interested in the classification. If it's called a genocide or a massacre, whatever. I mean, you know, just it seems bad is all I'm saying. He demands World War II reparations from Germany for material losses and war crimes committed in occupied Poland. Okay. Opposes the Russian Federation. He was criticized in Israel for downplaying the role of Poles in the Holocaust. I don't really care what Israel criticizes, to be honest. I don't trust them as good moral vectors, I suppose. Bandera is a controversial figure in Ukraine. The problem is that Bandera is obviously bad and evil. Like, just because you're a big... This is like a Christopher Columbus thing. Just because a figure is big in your national history doesn't mean that he's a good guy and should be celebrated as such. Like, he was really, really bad. You know, it's... I'm not really... I guess, like, yeah, you can do this to the Founding Fathers, too, to an extent, but, like, I'm not gonna, you know, defend him, certainly.
Gentlemen, yes, we are going to win. We are going to win tonight.
The presidential runoff pitted Trzaskowski, a liberal pro-EU politician, against Nawrocki, a conservative historian backed by the right-wing Law and Justice Party and aligned with US conservatives, including President Donald Trump. The outcome to determine whether Poland takes a more nationalist path.
Is there a lore reason as to why Polish nationalists are cucks to Russia? Have you been paying attention at all? Every single thing we've learned about this guy has demonstrated the opposite. Like, literally, you couldn't be further from correct on this point.
Or pivots decisively toward liberal democratic norms. Outgoing President Andrzej Duda had publicly backed Nawrocki. His victory means conservatives will continue to have significant influence over whether Prime Minister Donald Tusk's centrist government can fulfill its agenda, because the president has the power to veto laws.
Let's get more now from DW's Alexandra von Naumann, who is reporting for us from the Polish capital, Warsaw. Alexandra, the Polish Electoral Commission declared early this morning that the conservative candidate Nawrocki has won the presidential election. What more can you tell us about this very tight race?
Well, we have to say that it's...
Nawrocki says he opposes Ukraine NATO accession. Everyone does. NATO was, or Ukraine was never eligible to join NATO because they have an ongoing territorial dispute. Nobody is arguing, literally nobody is arguing that Ukraine should join NATO now. It's not possible. It would violate the NATO acceptance charter, you know? It's just the idea that the libs or whatever have wanted them to join NATO immediately, thus instantly triggering nuclear war between Russia and NATO, is just not true. It's a straw man.
Very narrow victory for Karol Nawrocki, which is no surprise at all, because the race was a close one from the beginning, and it was clear that either of the candidates had a good chance of winning. And I was quite surprised to see Nawrocki's opponent, the liberal candidate Rafał Trzaskowski, yesterday evening when the first exit poll was published, showing him with the slide ahead of his opponent. He took to the stage, he declared victory, and I really thought this is too early, and we then have seen a night of emotions on both sides after what has been described as a very brutal and polarizing campaign here in Poland.
Tell us a bit more about Karol Nawrocki. Who is he, and what is his agenda going to be?
What's his gender going to be? Well, you'd have to ask him directly. Not a huge amount of charisma here. That's fine. No hate to either of them. Somebody said this random tweet, which is not in my language, explains why the liberal lost. The problem being, of course, that I just have to rely on Google Translate, which is not... I've been reading since yesterday about how Rafał lost the match because of my puke bowl, so let's explain it. I don't want to read Google Translate text, to be honest with you. That's not my shit. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see how things go. Can I get a video on this? Sure, AP.
28 przy peronie 4. Prosimy zachować ostrożność i nie
Jestem zadowolona. Wygrał mój kandydat, po prostu. Cieszę się z tego, że Polska...
Does your family know any Polish? Guys, I'm American. What do you... The whole point of America is that it's a melting pot. What do you go up to every person with German, Polish, Irish, Italian ancestry in America? You'd be going up to every American. No white American's been here for more than 200 years. Why the f would I know Polish?
Zostanie Polską, nie zostanie sprzedana, po prostu.
No nie podobają się, co ja mam powiedzieć, no. Raczej nie.
Hell yeah,
Przewidywałem, że będzie inaczej.
This guy looks like how a gamer would be represented in the media in like 1985. Like he'd have a bunch of quarters up on the screen, you know?
Się, więc nie podobają się wyniki.
The results of Poland's election show that Poland remains a deeply divided country. Although the electoral turnout was highest ever in history of presidential elections, Mr. Nawrocki's margin of victory is very small, which...
Okay, here. Good video by TLDR. Yeah, give me some info.
This video is brought to you by Henson Shaving.
That's great.
Nawrocki. Going into the election, the big question was whether Tusk, Trzaskowski's party boss, who was elected...
All this shit you've been reading so far is the right-wing perspective trying to launder him. He's way worse. I mean, we were reading the Wikipedia article. Are you suggesting the Wikipedia article is biased in his favor? Would you like to provide any additional information?
Elected about 18 months ago, can get his reform agenda off the ground after nearly 2 years of obstructionism by President Andrzej Duda, a law and justice ally. While most polls suggested a slight lead for Trzaskowski, the final results were incredibly close, and unfortunately for Tusk, Nawrocki eked out a victory with 50.89% of the vote, narrowly defeating Trzaskowski on 49.11%. So in this video, we're going to look at Poland's presidential election results, and why it's bad news for both Tusk and the EU.
Okay. Hell yeah. It's true, I don't read.
If you're a TLDR fan and want to support the channel, then consider picking up a copy of our magazine.
Okay.
Too Long helps to fund all of our journalism and allows us to make free videos for YouTube like this one. You can...
No, I respect that. I think that's quite nice, you know? So you have like the shorts on the videos, but the long bits in the magazine. I think that's really cool. Nice, I miss magazines. Yeah.
Learn more and buy a copy by clicking the link in the description. First, let's start with a bit of context. For decades, Polish politics has been a tug-of-war between two parties, the nationalist right-wing Law and Justice Party, or PIS, and the centrist Civic Platform Party. Between 2005 and 2007, Law and Justice led its first government, but its rule was cut short by a corruption scandal involving their junior coalition partner, paving the way for early elections. These were decisively won by Donald Tusk, who served as Prime Minister between 2007 and 2014, until he resigned to serve as President of the European Council. However, Civic Platform failed to produce a strong candidate to replace Tusk, and was subsequently beaten by Law and Justice in the 2015 election, who continued to...
We go back to magazines, the electronics are pretty meh. I think the nice thing about magazines is that there's more gatekeeping for entry. A lot of media is made for the everyman now to maximize ad revenue or whatever, like if you go on YouTube, because you need to get a lot of people to watch your shit to make YouTubing like even remotely profitable, especially if you have multiple people working on the channel. You have to like really spread out the appeal there. Whereas with like a niche magazine, you can legitimately have like a few hundred readers and actually make that like a worthwhile thing. I know this isn't like a politics thing specifically or whatever, but there are like little books and magazine and pamphlets on specific things pertaining to fashion that have more information and are a better guide and are better curated than anything on YouTube, and they've been around for decades and they're still accessible. And it's because they were made by and for like elite hobbyists, people who really know about the shit and want to know a lot, rather than like, you know, here's my brand identity on the channel, here's my delivery of the information. Do you know what the tabby boot is or whatever? Like, you can get way more info. It's just, you know, it's nice to diversify where you get your info from.
Governed for 2 consecutive terms. According to many analysts and commentators, during these 2 terms, the rule of law in Poland has severely deteriorated under PIS's rule, and the party's tenure was plagued by corruption allegations. For instance, in 2019, a former speaker of Poland's lower parliamentary house resigned over accusations he took more than 100 personal flights on a government jet. A former finance minister was accused of having...
Fuck. I think I'm content stealing. Look, is the gist of this just going to be that the reason the liberal guy lost is because nobody in Poland thinks he's going to fix anything? Like, just accusations of incompetence, corruption, and just dicklessness abound? Nah, he went to the right? I mean, yeah, that's kind of implied, I guess. Vosh, read this. You think I'm going to read something that you typed just because you opened it with Vosh, read this? You presumptuous piece of shit. Are you kidding me? If you want me to read something, you say my name. That highlights it in blue for me. You arrogant son of a bitch. Hey, read this one especially. Do you have any idea what kind of precedent that would set? Sorry? No, you're not. This is the canon event for Poland. The Polish Constitutional Tribunal crisis has been an ongoing political conflict in Poland starting the second half of 2015 over the appointment of 5 of the 15 judges of the Constitutional Tribunal. Is this their Supreme Court? Constitutional Court, yeah, okay. Judicial body, da-da-da, okay. He lost partially due to the familiar death of liberalism. Libs can't find a new narrative. Yeah. No one can decide who's actually a member of the court. That seems like an issue. Wait, this seems like a nightmare. The president of the Constitutional Tribunal dictated the new 5 judges should not hear cases till the situation was settled. In order to combat this, the PIS party passed a series of laws through the Sejm and Senate, which compelled the Constitutional Tribunal to allow the judges to hear new cases. The new legislation was signed into law on the 28th of December 2016. The court ruled the 5 new judges elected by the 8th Sejm were legally appointed, but in March 2016 ruled the new legislation unconstitutional. The latter ruling was ignored by the Polish government, which considered the ruling advisory. Oh God. Oh my God, that's insane. Are you kidding me? This was 10 years ago. They haven't resolved it since? Because the president was blocking it, it'd be solved now if the liberal won. Guess you'll have this for a while more. The voters don't care about this. Voters don't care about anything unless you make them care about it. And liberals can't make people care about things, clearly, as evidenced by the election. Jesus. You ever wonder how Poland is in the EU? I don't know how the Hungary is in the EU, okay? Poland, I understand. I have no idea why Hungary is in the EU. Okay, well, good luck with that nightmare.